What women wore before dresses. Today, anything goes in fashion. But how did women go from togas to mini dresses? Let's start way back in ancient Egypt. It was hot there, so people didn't wear much. Egyptian women wore simple linen or cotton dresses with shoulder straps. Both men and women applied makeup. Over in ancient Greece, women first wore something called a peplos. It was a big rectangle of cloth that they folded and pinned together. Later, Greek gals upgraded to a long tunic. It was called a chiton. Roman women's fashion was more advanced. They dressed in long colorful dresses, called stolas. They often wore shawls, called pallas over these. The rich could afford cotton and silk. Others wore wool or linen. Wigs and false teeth were common among both genders. Viking women were skilled in textile production. They spun and wove cloth. At home, their outfits consisted of shifts, dresses, and cloaks. Brooches held their clothing in place. Women often braided their hair or covered it with a headscarf. Medieval fashion involved multiple layers. Saxon women layered up with a linen undergarment and a long tunic on top. Belts cinched the waist. Underwear, as we know it today, didn't exist yet. In the 14th century, fashion began changing more rapidly. Elaborate hats became popular. The Tudors introduced clothing restrictions. Only the wealthy could wear silk and cotton. Most people wore wool of varying quality. Here's a fun fact. The Tudors used vegetable dyes for their clothes. Expensive dyes included bright red, purple, and indigo. Despite the ban, many people wore what they wished. Corsets appeared in the 16th century. Women wore them for 400 years. Some women wore a farthingale, a frame made of whalebone or wood. Those who couldn't afford a farthingale used a padded roll, called a bum roll, around their waist. Buttons were mainly decorative. At this time, clothes were held together with laces or pins. Aztec society had rigid clothing rules. Common people wore clothes made from maguey plant fiber. Only the upper class could wear cotton. Breaking this rule could result in death. In the 17th century, women wore black patches on their faces as fashion statements. These patches often had shapes like stars or moons. Crinolines became popular in the 1850s. These wireframes made skirts very wide. Later, bustles replaced crinolines. They made the back of skirts protrude. Contrary to popular belief, many women found corsets comfortable and supportive. Here's a shocker. Women didn't start wearing underwear until about 1800. They were called drawers and were actually two separate lead coverings tied together. The 20th century revolutionized women's clothing. Skirts became shorter, reaching the knee. Women aimed for a boyish look. World War II influenced clothing. Skirts became shorter to save fabric. Practical clothing took precedence over fashion. In the 1960s, Mary Quant invented the miniskirt. From the 1970s onward, fashion became more diverse. Trends changed rapidly. Today's diverse range of women's clothing styles is the result of this long and varied history.